Hi friends, David here from Learn Stage Lighting, and in this video, in this series here that we're doing this month, I want to talk all about networking, okay? And we're not talking about talking to people here making business connections, but we're talking about the more introverted side of networking per se. We're talking about computers, lighting consoles. In lighting, more and more as we get into the future, you're going to have the need to use networking. And if you understand some really basic stuff, it can actually help you make a lot of sense out of networking, okay? Because networking doesn't have to be complicated, and in fact, most often in stage lighting, it's not. It's super not complicated. And we're going to show you that through the videos this month. So the quick disclaimer at the start of this first video is that my goal with these couple videos is not to be 1000% correct on everything I define networking wise, but I want to break it down, make it simple, so that if you're new to networking and lighting and you want to use some networking stuff with your lighting, you're not sure how to do it, it's going to make sense to you. So if some of the definitions I give, if you're an IT pro and you hear what I say and you're just like shaking your head, you're like, no, that's not 100% correct, David, just hang on a minute. I want to make it easy and simple for folks who are new to this. And so the very first thing to talk about is why get networking in your show and what type of gear are you going to run into and how does that work when it comes to networking? The why is pretty simple. There's two main reasons why we use networking in lighting. The first is generally to get wireless control over our devices, right? Everybody and their mom, especially their mother, has tablets these days, right? And you've got laptops and phones, and you want to be able to be, on the other side of the room and adjust something with your lighting, okay? And in a lot of circumstances. Maybe you want complete wireless control of your lighting console, whatever that may be. It's plugged into DMX lights, or maybe it uses wireless DMX, but regardless, you want to use it wirelessly. We'll talk about that. The other reason is that you may want to send DMX data over a network. Why? Well, ArtNet and SACN, the two main formats of DMX over networking, are great ways when you have to send multiple universes of DMX. If you're using pixel products or just a lot of universes of DMX, like more than a few, then it's a lot easier to run a single network cable or grab a networking pro and send it wirelessly and be able to run one cable or one signal, have all your data in that signal, instead of grabbing like 50 DMX cables to send everything from the console to the stage. And so that's the why. Now we want to talk about the what, okay? And that's going to be the focus of this video. So in front of me here on this table, I've actually got a variety of different things here, all sorts of networking peripherals, and I want to talk about them all, show you what they do, and dispel some definitions. So the first definition to dispel, I think, when we are talking about networking is the term router, okay? A lot of you have some device in your home, it might be as small as this little one, and it connects to the internet from your provider, right? Same with businesses. A lot of times you call that the router, okay? Truth be told, a device like that, even like this, has multiple different responsibilities, multiple things that it does, okay? A router, simply put, is a device that connects smaller networks to bigger networks, or it connects networks together, okay? Its most important task, when I think about it at least, and again, IT pros, please be gentle in the comments, its most important task is saying, okay, on this small closed network, we have these IP addresses. We'll talk more about those later. And on this big network, we have some overlap. We have some of the same IP addresses. This router is going to allow them to talk to each other without there being problems, okay? Your typical home router also is going to have a switch on it, right? So this one here, it's got 3 little network ports on it. It's just a little tiny one, okay? That's a network switch. And a switch, at its core, an unmanaged type switch, which is not necessarily what's built into your home router, is a device that multiplies and repeats DMX network signal in two directions. Okay, or not DMX, sorry. Just network signal in both directions. It sends and receives. Everything that comes into the switch gets forwarded to everywhere else. Done. Okay, that's for an unmanaged switch, which is what we use a lot in lighting. If you do get to the point of managed switches, you get to that level, there can be some routing and other smarter capabilities, but if you don't need that stuff, and if you don't know you need that stuff, you probably don't, then stick with switches that have no management. More often than not, a simple switch could be all you need in a lighting network. Okay? Next, in the home router, we have what's called an access point. This is a little point-to-point access point. But you know, there's one in here too. And an access point allows wireless clients, wireless computers, lighting consoles, phones, tablets, whatever, to connect to the network. Okay, so its job is being the antenna, being the wireless. That's an access point. Okay, the next things we've got network cables. Okay, these are really important because they connect things together. Sometimes when you're troubleshooting something, these are all that's wrong because they're really cheap and the patch cables can break. Okay, so network cables, they're important. They're the physical layer of computer networking. They're important when we make a network. You might have wireless adapters, which of course can work with those access points, and they can work together to be able to be wireless. Okay, and this may be built into your devices or it may be external, like this little USB one. All right. And so that's pretty much the gear you need to know for networking. More often than not, for networking and stage lighting, we're just using network switches. We may use a router. We may use an access point to get wireless control. A lot of times, a simple router access point switch combo like this might be all you need when you're trying to get wireless control. You've got a couple devices. It can be simple to set these up. Okay, that brings up a few quick definitions to cover before we wrap this video. Okay, every device, as we mentioned before, has an IP address. An IP address is a unique number that you give to each item on the network. It's like a phone number where they can call each other in order to get more information. It can be changed. You can change it anytime. Software can change it. And routers, and sometimes managed switches, have something that's called DHCP. You've probably seen this in your computer settings. You know, there's a toggle, turn on DHCP or manual IP address. And when DHCP is on, both in the router and the device that's connecting, then they'll talk together and figure out their own IP address. This can have its pros and cons, but it's generally good. The con can be when you have a application or something that's unicasting, and it needs to know the IP address of the other device, and then every time you connect it changes. You know, that could be a reason not to use DHCP for that device. Okay, you can go deeper there, so don't hate on me in the comments, but that's the basics. Okay, so a simple router like this can get you wireless control because it's an access point, it's a switch, it can plug in, done, and off to the races. And so, like we mentioned, IP address is that unique identifier, and it goes hand in hand with a subnet mask. Now, subnet masks look confusing, but they don't have to be. They're made up of sets of 4 sets of numbers, or octets. A lot of times you'll see one like 255.255.255.0. All right? The simplest subnet masks are either zeros or 255s. And any .0 is technically .000. It's a 3-digit number. Okay? All you really need to know, unless you get really fancy with your networking, is that your subnet mask typically is 255.255.255.0. Another common one is 255.0.0.0. The difference between these two is how many of the numbers of the IP address have to match for the two devices to talk to each other. And the numbers have to match as well through any routers or any other devices that they're going through on the network. Okay, so simply put, a device that is 192.168.0.100 can't talk to a device that's 192.168.2.100 unless they have the subnet mask of 255.255.0.0 or 255.0.0.0. But if they have the pretty standard 255.255.255.0, because the third octet is different for those two devices, they're not going to connect together. If you're not lost yet and you want to get a little bit more information, the next couple videos in this series, we're going to go and make some examples. Show you with the gear in front of me how things can connect together and look at some really big shows and how they network things together. If you want to go deeper with networking, you want to know even more, there's two really great resources that we're going to link below. All right. The first is Elation had Richard Cadena out at one point, I believe it was 2019, maybe early 2020. And he did his seminar, which is all about networking and show control and electricity and all that. And we'll link to the part on networking to the first part of that. You can check it out free on their website. It's really deep. There's a lot of info in there. Yamaha also has on YouTube a series with a guy named Pat Kalani that is also excellent and really goes deep into the weeds about explaining a lot of this network stuff. Again, we'll link to those below. If you're interested in more, check out this playlist if the rest of the videos are out, and if not, be sure to subscribe and we'll get those to you as they come. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day. See ya.